We now return to our program with a panel entitled Morality and Markets, Islamic Moral Economy and Finance in Daily Life. This important session will be moderated by Professor Dr. Enis UJKANOVIĆ, who will guide us through the discussion on how moral principles intersect with market practices and daily financial life. I kindly invite Professor Dr. UJKANOVIĆ to join us on stage and to invite the panelists to participate in the discussion.
Thank you. Welcome to our panel, Morality and Markets, as part of the conference on Islamic Moral Economy. It is my great pleasure to moderate this panel. We have very experienced and very diverse group of panelists. And I would like to thank them for taking the time and coming from far away and help us understand a better subject at hand. We have 4 panelists from 4 continents and many countries that they worked in, so it will take a lot of time for me to mention all the countries, but the 4 continents is, I think, enough. We have Professor Sanaullah ANSARI coming from Pakistan, from Islamabad. We have Sarah A. TOBIN coming from USA through Norway. We have Dino SELIMOVIĆ coming from Sarajevo through Priboj and Novi Pazar. We have Karim Ibn Jalul coming from Morocco through France. So we have a great value of experience and diversity. As we all know, all human activities, good or bad, need to be fueled by the economy, but also economic activity itself can be positive, negative, and has positive or negative aspects. Today we will explore the critical intersection of ethical principles and economic systems, an area of increasing global importance. As you all know, that we saw an economy that fuels both good and bad things in the world today. I hope that this discussion will help us understand better how moral frameworks, particularly those derived from Islamic principles, shape market behavior, consumer decisions, and business practices. The way how it's going to work is similar to the first panel. We will have 2 rounds of questions, and we'll ask then the audience if they have any questions, and then we'll provide time for conclusions. Our first panelist is Dr. Sanaullah ANSARI. Dr. ANSARI is an assistant professor at Zabist University in Islamabad, Pakistan, with a PhD in finance from University of Saint Malaysia, and has over 32 years of experience. He is an expert in Islamic finance, has authored numerous research papers, and has conducted professionally and worked professionally in countries including USA, Malaysia, Turkey, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Germany, and others. Dear Dr. ANSARI, although we have a separate panel on circular economy, I would like to ask you, how do the principles of circular economy, which focuses on continuous resource flow, align or conflict with Islamic economic principle of social welfare and the discouragement of excessive savings? Professor, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay. There you go.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me in this wonderful event in Serbia. If we talk about the circular economy, and when we discuss about that what circular economy is, it means that the inflow and outflow of resources in an economy. That economy in which circulation of money exists. And in the light of, if we compare with capitalism, we can see that Professor Habib has mentioned in his keynote speech that capitalism is based upon maximization of wealth and maximization of profit. When we consider that maximization of wealth, what does it mean? It means that you are going to increase your wealth by all means, it doesn't mean that you are increasing by fair means or unfair means. Theoretically, we can say, definitely none of the economists have encouraged to increase his wealth by unfair means. But what happens practically? Definitely, if you look into the economies of every country of the world, because almost all countries of the world are now following capitalism. So what practically we can see? We can see that in capitalism, every person is running behind the gathering of money, running behind the collecting of money, and it doesn't make any difference that whether they are getting it through fair means or unfair means. The only principle which they are going to follow, that they have to increase in their wealth, they have to increase in their profit. But in contrast, in Islamic economic system or Islamic financial system, if we see, because it is based upon social welfare, and social welfare means that while during thinking about yourself, you have to think by others as well. For example, if you are going to offer your services, if you're going to sell your products, definitely it is a right for you that you can earn profit on that. But in Islam, in Islamic economic system, it is encouraged that you earn justified profit. And it denies this theory of maximization of wealth and maximization of profit. If we look upon the guidance given by Almighty Allah and His Messenger, peace be upon him, I have found almost 10 verses in Holy Quran which are most relevant with this specific question, with this specific topic. And in all these verses, in different surahs, Almighty Allah has guided us that we can earn money, we can increase our wealth, we can do businesses, but again there are some ethical and social values. There are ethical and social norms. If you follow those norms, if you follow those rules, definitely a social welfare-based economy can exist. And then the second thing is that in capitalism, savings are encouraged and interest is being offered on those savings. It means in capitalism, this system encourages people to save more and more, and while this way they can earn more. But think about that. If we start savings, saving means you are saving, you are stopping a currency note while circulating in the economy. And as per economic principles, one currency note generates so many financial transactions in the economy. But if you stop that currency note from the market, it means we are stopping those economic activities from the economy. And this is called maximization of wealth. Islam strongly encourages circulation of money. Islam strongly encourages spendings rather than savings. It doesn't prohibit savings, but it discourages savings. And to promote this spending, Islam or Islamic financial system, it tells us that if we start saving, we have to pay zakat. We have to pay tax on that. And this is the example of discouragement of saving. And this is not for the purpose that you can't save. You can definitely, but not excessive saving is allowed in Islam. And definitely, when you do not save excessively, it means you promote circular economy, you promote financial activity, you promote financial transactions, which will definitely help the economy overall.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding us these principles of circular economy is something that we had for centuries, but we just didn't call them that way until the modern economy has provided problems, that circular economy now needs to solve. And this savings, if the alternative to saving is not an excessive savings, is not just a consumption, it's also investment. So we also should take that note. Our second panelist is Sara Tobin. Sara is an anthropologist and research professor at the Christian Michelsen Institute in Norway. She specializes in Islamic finance, Syrian refugees and the Middle East, and has led several multinational research projects, including the Visible Ceiling, Muslim immigrant entrepreneurs navigate Norway's financial environment. Sara, how do the specific Islamic ethical principles, particularly the prohibition of interest or riba, create these invisible ceilings that hinder the economic growth and integration of Muslim immigrant entrepreneurs, especially in Norway.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you for this wonderful gathering. Thanks to the speakers so far. I love coming to the Balkans. The environment is so vibrant and engaged, and people are so keen to learn, and I just find the environment to really be one that I'm really enjoying. So thank you very much for the invitation. So I'm going to mention just briefly a bit about the project first, and then answer the question. So I've been the PI, the principal investigator, for a 5-year project funded by the Norwegian Research Council that looks at what we're calling the invisible ceiling. And we take the case of, for example, Mohammed. Mohammed was one of the many Syrian migrants that came to Europe in 2015, and made his way into Oslo and opened a small grocery, a small green, goods store, and would like to expand it and grow, maybe invite his sister to open a small cafe with it, except he quickly found that there is no Islamic compliant financing available. So then he tried the local mosque or community, and only found that these informal systems were also inadequate and insufficient. And so this was the driving kind of case for this research. Then we argue what folks like Mohammed have experienced is the invisible ceiling. There is a kind of cap, a maximum, a ceiling on what he's able to do as a Muslim immigrant entrepreneur in the Norwegian case. So over the course of 5 years, we had 5 international partners, including Durham University, looking into this question. We did fieldwork in 7 cities in Norway, about 100 interviews. We had a quantitative survey, which was a complete disaster because Norwegians don't like to take surveys. And Muslim immigrants especially were quite keen to avoid attention on themselves in the Norwegian context. That's a topic for another talk, I guess. And then we had a few research stays, learning from the UK case in particular. In the end, our results included 7 academic publications, papers, and a co-edited special issue. We had 5 student theses, undergraduate, master's, and PhDs, and we presented at 24-ish conferences. So the idea with the invisible ceiling is that it's not just one thing that keeps these Muslim immigrant entrepreneurs from growing their businesses, from contributing to societal advancement, economic development, pursuing role models as sort of Muslim citizens in Norway. It wasn't one thing, it was a number of things. Our research found that it included a combination of things like a lack of formal financing, so there's no Islamic compliant financing in Norway. I recently got a revise and resubmit on an academic paper, and the peer reviewer said, I absolutely cannot be right. There's no way that a country has no Islamic compliant financing. I said, well, wait till I get my response. The informal financing was also insufficient. And one of the reasons for that is because in the Norwegian context, Muslim migration is relatively new. In the 1970s, Pakistanis came as labor migrants, but the Somalis have come more recently, Syrian refugees more recently, and others. And in the words of one of the interviewees that I spoke with, he said, I go to the mosque and I pray and I look to the right and there's a man from Somalia, and I am Syrian, and I look to the left and there's a man from Pakistan. And sure, we can pray together, but can I trust them with my money? But this idea, that there's a lack of trust in these immigrant communities because of the diversity, because of the differences, was really a hindrance to other formations of, like in the Middle East, you might find the jama'iyas, the collective credit and savings cooperatives of family and friends. Many refugees came without assets, and so, for example, we would ask about their business model. And I remember one guy we interviewed, he was like, what business model? My model is I go online every day and I look for free goods that people are getting rid of, and I collect them all, and I fix them up and I sell them. this is my business model. I have no assets and I cannot take any risk. And so the kinds of questions I think we were asking were about kind of a more economically developed condition for many immigrants than was the case for many in Norway. There is also just a general economic support that's missing for entrepreneurs. So my husband is also an entrepreneur. We're Americans living in Norway, and the taxation levels are so high that starting a small business is incredibly difficult. There's no tax breaks for new entrepreneurs, and so not only is the threshold for entry high, but then the process for engaging your capital is quite challenged by the high rates of taxation. There is also racism and Islamophobia in Norway, which I can talk about more in depth. I want to make two last points on this. So the question I was posed with, how do specific Islamic ethical principles, for example, riba, create invisible ceilings, or this invisible ceiling? And I'm thinking about this question, I'm thinking, but whose ethical principles? Because Islam is so diverse that the kinds of things we might think about, and Habib, I think this goes to your talk earlier, is that yes, moving away from this sort of technical approach and this really kind of narrow approach to the field needs to be done, but then how do we do it given the diversity of Islam? And one of the more interesting interviews that we had in Norway was with an imam who was of Pakistani descent. And he said when he provides advice and counsel to the members of his mosque, he uses the concept of, in Norwegian, it's barnas best. It's what's best for the children. And this is a very Norwegian idea, like the idea that kids have that much sort of power is inculcated from an early age to all children. And the idea that this was guiding the way that he advised people on Islam and Islamic principles and how to live an Islamic life, it was really significant. What ethical value is this? Well, it's a Norwegian value. It's a Norwegian and an Islamic value. And so when we're talking about these ethics, it's important to recognize that they look different from place to place and time to time. And I think that perhaps this also explains why there's been or at least in part, a push towards these technical components, because those we can often agree on in multiple diverse cultural contexts. But we can't always agree, for example, on the interpretation of taking a mortgage with interest if you're not considering what's best for the children in that sense. And then the last point I want to raise, is actually about taxation. So we haven't yet talked about taxation very much in this event today, and I want to just mention that the Muslims that we interviewed in Norway were really like the ethical guidance of taxation and the way that taxation impacted their daily lives was really important. And for many of them, they felt like they were being taxed twice, especially in comparison with family and friends, for example, in Muslim majority countries, the Gulf or Pakistan, for example. Because the rate of taxation in Norway is between 30 to 40%. And then on top of that, they had to pay zakat. And so they said, well, yes, it's great to live in a society with this robust welfare system where there's this incredibly large middle class and everybody makes a living wage. I mean, the ethics, they were like, this is a more Islamic society in many ways because it does not have this wide wealth gap, for example. But then they said, but we have to pay for it. And not only do we pay for it out of our income tax of 30 to 40%, but then we pay zakat on top of that. And so there was really this idea that many sort of ethical aspects of living could be tailored to their individual interests or community interests a bit more because the state plays such a robust part in their daily ethical lives. So that's my long answer to the short question.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a great example of recognizing the shared values. You know, that it's not just a Norwegian value, not just Islamic value, it's actually the same value. And as we heard in the introductory speaks, we have a lot of values that are nominal, but in practice we have a lot of issues in implementing those. And in many in those areas we can look at the Western countries as role models, but also recognizing these ceilings that exist not just in Norway, but also in other countries, related especially to financing. And one of the persons trying to exceed or actually break these ceilings or limitations is our next panelist, Dino SELIMOVIĆ. Mr. Selimović has an extensive business and entrepreneurial experience in important positions, including the position of marketing manager and director of the Sarajevo Business Forum at Bosnia Bank International, as mentioned, the first non-interest-based bank in the Balkans. And since October 2023, he has also held positions of advisor of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina. In addition, he is also a member of Innovation Council at the University of Pazar. Mr. Selimović, we would like to know how important it is for businesses in non-OIC countries or countries that are not part of Organization of Islamic Cooperations like Bosnia and Herzegovina to connect with the economies of Muslim-majority countries, and what role the halal certification plays in this.
Let me first thank the organizers for inviting me, especially Rector and the financial manager, and not to insult anyone else, but these are my friends, and I love coming back and revisiting Novi Pazar and seeing every time the University of Novi Pazar is looking better, having better conditions for its students, and becoming one of the most vibrant societies in the entire Serbia. So I really applaud you on that, and I think this project, the University of Novi Pazar, which was founded in 2002, is really showing off its positive effects on the future of this region. And I have my talking points, but when Sarah mentioned Norway and that it's a more Islamic country than countries that carry the name Islamic, I just remembered something. I'm very proud of that, and if you go on my social media, you will see that I'm promoting the first Bosniak high school in Sarajevo, which was founded in '95 during the siege of Sarajevo, during the war in Sarajevo, by the Islamic community and by the government, as an elite gymnasium, but not a madrasa. A school fit for European and global challenges and surroundings, because Bosnian Muslims, Bosniaks in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Serbia, in Sandžak, in Montenegro, are indigenous peoples. So we are autochthone people, Muslims from Europe, Europeans, and that's something that really carries a lot of weight in every sense. So when you mentioned this, I remembered one of my professors. Just two nights ago, we celebrated 30 years of our high school, and I remember Professor Medalija Hadžić, who was teaching the class of religion. It wasn't a religious class, it was like history of religion. And he asked us at one of the first classes, so tell me, which country is the most Islamic in the world? And now we were like kids coming out of primary school and said, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Iran, Morocco, whatever, Pakistan. Most of those that had Islamic in its preference, Turkey doesn't have it, but we were connected because of the Ottoman Empire. And he said, why nobody said Sweden or Norway? And we were like, but you know, Islamic, they have a cross on their flag, and we were just freshly out of war. And he said, okay, what is Islamic? Is it just calling something Islamic or painting it green? Or is it having this welfare system and taking care of the people coming and giving them jobs? And so I remember this vividly, and I saw him after 15 years 2 nights ago, and now for you to mention the same sentence that I've heard 30 years ago is no accident. Bosnia and Herzegovina is an observer in the OIC. We don't have a voting right, but we are a part of that multilateral organization. And for us, being a Muslim country, or a country which has over 50% of Muslims in Europe, is very challenging. And we know that through our history. You know it here in Novi Pazar as well. And it is challenging, you know, to fight off the Islamophobic approaches in every sense. So for us, it's very important to, to bridge this understanding between the Islamic world and the Western civilization, which is, let's say, mostly Christian or Catholic, specifically in Europe. For us, it's a chance. We see it as a development chance, as an opportunity to attract investments in the, I would call it halal economy ecosystem, whatever it is, in every industry which is allowed by Islam, which is most of industries. So basically, other than riba, pork production, any adult content and gambling, just to simplify it, everything can and should be halal. So in that sense, we see it as a chance, as a bridge between the East and the West, and this has been said so many times. Sarajevo is that meeting point of the Western and the Eastern civilization, and instead of being a wall between these civilizations, it should be a bridge. And you know, one interesting fact, the city of Novi Pazar was founded by the same person, Isabek Isaković, like Sarajevo. So Novi Pazar is a year older, you are our older brother than Sarajevo. So there is a lot of history and a lot of connection here. When it comes to halal, you mentioned it as a concept. Halal certification, we have a very, very developed halal industry, halal ecosystem. Our agency for halal quality certification is a body founded by the Islamic community in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it's well recognized and very well accepted everywhere, both in the East and the West, because we follow on the European standards. We are not only treating it religiously, we are talking about if we're talking about food, we are talking about all of the food quality standards which are required for us to export to Europe. So just adding on the halal aspect. We are happy to see that even non-Muslims in Europe are seeing it as clean and responsible approach when you talk about halal, and in general we believe that this leads to new jobs, higher exports, stronger partnerships. Halal is something which is required in many Muslim countries if you want to export. And I think it's an added value for Bosnia and Herzegovina, both to support the business, but also to bridge the gap of understanding what halal is, basically to Europeans, or let's say to the Western society. So I will stop with that, and just one final sentence. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Alen Omerović, my boss, sends his greetings to everyone here, especially to the university and to the Bosniaks. And he hopes to visit Novi Pazar soon, whenever his agenda allows it.
Thank you for the answer. Thank you for sending the greetings. Our last panelist, Karim BENDJELLOUN, is also coming from the business sector. Karim is a highly specialized financial professional, currently serving as a financial counsel for Franco-Moroccans and Safrin Gestion. Karim possesses a deep and extensive knowledge base in financial planning and advisory, with a particular strength in the principles and applications of Islamic finance. His expertise allows him to provide culturally sensitive, Sharia-compliant financial solutions tailored specifically to the needs of Franco-Moroccan community he serves. Dear Karim, has the development of Islamic finance in France progressed as expected? What specific, actually, legal and regulatory challenges have possibly hindered its growth, and in addition, are there any others? Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, first of all, for the organization and for inviting me. It's the first time in Serbia. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much. So, the development of Islamic finance in France has seen moderate progress. So, it's still far from its full potential, because we have in France 7 million Muslim populations. It's the same size of the population of Serbia. And yet we have only a few tens of thousands of people that use Islamic financial products in France. And we have, from the investment side, everything we need. We have global sukuk funds, we have equity funds, we have real estate funds, we have murabaha financing, or home financing. So we have a lot of solutions, but what is lacking is education. Because we have when you go to a bank branch, the first, what you see is a Moroccan and Algerian or Tunisian clerk that serves you at the bank. 60% of people that work in the conventional banks are from Morocco, Algeria, or Tunisia. And they say to their customers, you can use conventional loans and deposits, traditional deposits that pay interest. You just have to give away interest each year. This is deeply in the culture. So what you have to do in France is change the mindset, educate people about finance, because we talk a lot about what new products or new processes or new things we can invent in Islamic finance, but it's not the problem, because we have 7 million Muslim people populations out of 25, so it's 30% of the global population. In Spain it's the same thing. Our Spanish friends, they have no Islamic bank. There are maybe 4 million Muslims in Spain, so this is the main problem. And regulatory is a problem, but it's not the main problem. You could say that there have been some adjustments in French law to allow murabaha, to allow ijara, to allow most Muslim-based, Sharia compliant-based contracts, but they are not used. And there is a problem because when you have just a small bank, it's a small Moroccan bank that has an Islamic window in France, you can't have a sufficient supply. We have tens of thousands of people that need home financing each year, and only maybe 500 murabahas that are granted each year in France. 500 out of for 7 million populations. So this is what we should do. So you have to convince. And another problem is the way Muslims are perceived, are seen in France. Because if you open, and it happened, if you open in Nice or Paris a bank branch and you call it Islamic, well, it won't last 2 days nowadays. It won't last 2 days because the way it's seen is negative. So educate the Muslim populations about the solutions and also educate global population about Islam and about what we can do as Muslims in France. Thank you very much.
I couldn't understand the last point you did in Nice and Paris. What did you?
Yes.
Actually, I did not get the point. I did not get your last points about the branches in Paris and Nice. You said.
Yeah, they were experiment a few years ago. It's a sister that tried to start a small like a brokering firm that offered financial services like bank accounts and murabahas and takaful. She tried to do it, but she just only a few months because people that live, French people, non-Muslim population that live in France, see Islamic products as something that should not exist in France because of the way Muslims and Muslim population is seen in France. So we have to educate the global population about.
What did they?
Yeah.
I mean, did they assault the branch or something? What happened?
What happened? They just destroyed the bank, and she was forced to stop her activity. Yes. This is the main problem we have in France. So main services are online. Even what I do, it's online and it works pretty well. And the Muslim population, we have to educate them because they don't know about Islamic financial publishers. So it's the first thing we should do. Yes.
Thank you. So it's in line with what was said in the opening remarks and in the first panel that education is the key. So a lot of work for universities and institutes and other educational institutions, meaning that we are still on the first verse, Ikra, and to learn and to study and to educate the people, so then all other obstacles can be overcome. Most probably that these lessons, can be applied for the wider European context. And one of the areas of Islamic finance that is also needs improvement in education and actually doesn't have many legal obstacles actually can exist and coexist in the existing legal framework is zakah. And dear Professor Ansari, in what specific ways does the Islamic concept of zakah addresses the issue of poverty and the flow of money, and how might this system be contrasted with the capitalist approach of wealth distribution?
Well, this is a very interesting question. If I talk about zakah, I just have discussed in my first answer that in circular economy, Islam or Islamic financial system encourages spendings rather than savings. Because on saving we have to pay zakah. And another important point is this, that normally we consider zakah as a financial obligation. And we think that this is, you earn and you spend and you pay zakah on your savings. But let me tell you that according to a hadith by Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, our deen, our religion has two sections, two parts. 50% of our deen is rights of Allah, hukukullah, which is consisting of ibadat. And 50% of our deen is hukukul ibad, rights of people. Our deen cannot be completed without balancing in between rights of Allah and rights of people. So zakah is basically associated with rights of people. In the Holy Quran, in Surah Baqarah, Almighty Allah says that pay your zakah from your savings as poor has the right on your wealth. So this is a compulsory obligation of all wealthy Muslims that they have to pay zakah. If we look into the Holy Quran, I have found more than 30 verses in Quran which are addressing on this important issue, zakah. But interesting point is this, that in all verses, if you read Holy Quran, you can find that Almighty Allah said, "Wa aqimus salat wa atu zakat." Every time zakat is attached with the offering of prayer. So this shows the importance of zakat. Aqimus salat, rights of Allah, and atu zakat, payment of zakat, is hukukul ibad. So it means this is the equal importance. Zakat system has the equal importance along with offering prayers. Because most of the Muslims, most of people, we think that while offering prayers, we are completing our religion, we are completing our deen, and we are trying to avoid from zakat. And this system, when Almighty Allah has said, and there are hundreds of ahadiths in which Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, has encouraged us and make it an obligation to us that whenever we earn more than our needs and necessities, we have to pay zakah. And this system in a circular economy is very, very beneficial, because when you pay zakah, when you pay a fixed amount from your extra income, it means you are generating financial and economic activity in the society, and in this way poverty can also be controlled. If we talk about Pakistan, which is an Islamic country, definitely we have 97% Muslim population over there, and alhamdulillah, a zakat system is very, very strong over there. On the level of government as well as individual. Unfortunately, we don't have exact data that how much zakat Pakistanis pay every year, because majority of the people pay their zakat by their own, and that is non-documented, payment of zakat. But the government, at government level, all financial institutions in Pakistan, they are bound to withdraw zakat on the savings of every person at the rate of 2.5%, which is a religious obligation, and only that amount is in millions of dollars. And then if we add up that amount of zakat which individuals pay by their own, the total amount can increase in billions of dollars every year. And this is the best example for poverty alleviation, for poverty reduction in Pakistan, and definitely it is helping. A large number of population, as because in Pakistan we have almost 45% people are living below poverty according to the new census. So this payment of zakah, it is a very, very helpful resource in our country to eradicate poverty, to help poor, and specifically if in recent last 2 or 3 months you must have observed that we have faced severe floods in our country. So during this time, most of the people, they have paid zakah. Even this is a common practice that people normally pay zakah in the month of Ramadan. But this time it happens that most of the people, they paid their zakat, they pay their charity, to the needy people who have been suffered from this severe flood, and this definitely helps a lot to those victims who have been suffered with this flood system. So zakat definitely plays a vital role, plays an important role in poverty alleviation, in poverty reduction, in any type of society. But if we believe this, that this is not a financial responsibility, rather it is a religious obligation, and it is a part of our deen, it is a part of our religion, it is part of our iman.
Thank you, Dr. Ansari, for noting that zakat can alleviate not just poverty, but also have an influence in society greater than that. But in order to be able to pay zakat, one needs to be able to earn. And the best way to earn is through ethical entrepreneurship. Of course, that's one part of the to be fully in line with the ethical principles. You have to earn ethically as well and spend ethically. And that leads us to the next question for our panelist Sarah, and that is what is the practical difference between the formal financial institutions that inadequately accommodate religious obligations and the informal networks that provide only limited support for Muslim entrepreneurs, now moving to the financing or sourcing of funding for these entrepreneurs, they, in order so they can earn and they can then spend ethically.
Thank you. I mean, it's phrased in the question, they're both inadequate, right? In the project that we had, what we found is that the formal institutions were insufficient because they didn't address the ethical and moral questions that people had, right? Or they ignored them, or, I mean, it just didn't account for them in a way. One of the master's students that did his thesis with us, he looked at the case of student loans. And Norway, I think, is similar to other countries where like a portion of the student loan upon graduation gets turned into a grant, and then a portion you have to pay back with interest. And it was fascinating. Like the students that he interviewed would really try to maximize the grant and then eliminate the obligation of the interest-bearing portion, right? So there were ways within the formal institutions, for example, student loans, that the Muslims in Norway would try to adhere to their ethical values and their obligations and minimize the sort of non-Islamic implications, especially on interest-bearing. But it was still insufficient. And then we really expected to find quite elaborated like programs for sharing, these informal programs for sharing, like the jam'iyas, like the ways that people can combine savings and do a rotating process of the payout. And we found that they were highly underdeveloped. And that gets back to the trust issues. And so you have an imperfect system, right, where on the one hand, the formal institutions do not sufficiently attend to people's needs or desires for ethical consideration or Islamic consideration. And then the informal systems could do that, but the population within the community, there wasn't enough trust yet developed. And so they both were really lacking when people needed financing. And this was especially challenging for entrepreneurs who wanted to earn ethically, but they also really wanted to contribute ethically, not only in terms of the financial capital and business growth and economic growth, but in terms of their social standing. They wanted to be good role models. They wanted to employ other people. They wanted to do something good and found it very difficult to do so. So the differences between formal and informal networks and institutions were really challenged in that way, but I think it also goes back to the comment that Karim was making about if you call it Islamic, what happens? And actually I want to put a plug in for a new network that I'm trying to establish, and I would like you all to join. I'm applying for a cost action from the Horizon scheme within the EU, and I'm trying to establish a network across Europe of people who are interested in this very question. Is there a way that we can sort of bring our knowledge across Europe and our experiences together to try to look at which countries and how secular or non-Islamic financial systems and formal institutions can be mobilized for Islamic customers? So instead of calling it musharaka, if we call it profit and loss sharing, do the regulations in your country allow for it? How can we better promote it for Muslims, for entrepreneurs? Is there a way that we can talk about it in terms of cost plus financing or profit and loss sharing instead of mudaraba and musharaka? I mean, if we change the language, what do the regulations in our countries, respective countries, allow us to do that help bring Muslims into better positions of financial inclusion? So please email me. I will add you to the list. I would love to have you all. We are especially in need of women and also women under 40. But at this point, I would be really happy for the knowledge that anyone is able to bring to the network. It would be really a joy to have you. I also want to add, I think it's very interesting that on this panel about ethics in Islamic moral economy, a non-Muslim has been invited to come and comment. And I think that it speaks to this idea that we can learn from each other's experiences and share and grow and work for the betterment of our communities and our societies, irrespective of where they are. So, thank you.
Thank you. I believe you will have many interesting individuals to join your network from here, especially as we share a lot of challenges that you mentioned. Like, for example, similar to the loans, to student loans in Norway, we had a challenge of business loans for small and medium enterprises here in Serbia, also linked to the grant. And the grant was not small, it was like 30% to 50% of grant, but then the remaining part would be interest-based loans. And we had a lot of entrepreneurs just refusing to get into this because of the interest. And then we tried to resolve this issue with Ministry of Economy that was providing actually these grants, and they were interested, but as the administration was formulated, it was very hard for them to accommodate this, because this interest was like 1 to 2%, and this was an interest given to the banks as an incentive. They said they can give these subsidized loans. So what at the end was done was like this not less than ideal solution that, for example, City of Novi Pazar took an obligation to provide like call for proposals for anybody that would get these loans, that they would take on their interest. So they will pay the interest for them. It is not like, in essence, an Islamic solution avoiding the riba, but avoiding for the entrepreneurs paying that interest in addition. So a lot of challenges that we face are similar, and also the having these profit and loss sharing models are not just beneficial for Muslims, they are beneficial for society, and promoting those in a way that they can be promoted is much appreciated, and it's much needed, especially in today's economy. So apart from sources of financing, we also need a good environmental, a good business environment for business to grow. So this leads us to the question for Mr. Selimović, given that Bosnia has emerged as a leader in halal certification within Europe. What specific steps has the country taken to build this reputation, and how does this benefit the economy and especially international trade?
Well, following up on everything what Sarah said, I think Sarajevo and Bosnia and Herzegovina are the natural centers in Europe to discuss Islamic economy, halal, finance, and one day, soon enough, hopefully, God willing, when we are a member of the European Union, we should have this European agency to better understand and deal with these challenges that are definitely present across Europe and that are going to emerge more and more in most of the countries. We have to be very careful, I think, when we use the words Islamic or halal. I think if we're just using it for branding and marketing to sell something, I think that is very, very dangerous for the concept and the value of a brand of the religion of Islam. I hope I'm getting it right and getting the message out to you. So if we were just putting on our meat butcher shop halal, just to sell more, it's not good, especially when it comes to Islamic banking. And I think the Republic of Turkey had this semi-bad experience with calling banks Islamic. It might be because of the political rivalries within the country and the secular approach and the majority Muslim country. So they're not using the word Islamic when they refer to banks that are following Islamic principles. They are calling them participation banks, and they are much more accepted. So it's not the same to sell Islamic in Saudi Arabia, in Pakistan, in Morocco, where you have 85, 90, 95% Muslims, and coming to Bosnia and Herzegovina and saying you are Islamic whatever, bank, fund, business. Even when you mention Sharia, I think that's something that's really a trigger for most of Europeans to say, okay, but I don't want Sharia in my country. And I mean, you have to understand that people don't know what it is, that they have very vague understanding of it. When we did this research in our Islamic banking courses, like, okay, what's the first Google result that you get when you type in Sharia law? You get the worst punishments in Sharia, which are like the end means of something which rarely happens, but you know, cutting off hands for stealing. So the guy thinks, okay, but I stole a chocolate when I was a kid, and now this Sharia law is gonna cut off my. I mean, this is the reality. I mean, we can dream dreams and think that it's not like that, but when you talk to people who are not familiar with it and with the migration issues and people changing certain societies, even in Bosnia, we like our Muslim friends across the world, but when the migration crisis hit Sarajevo, my hometown, people started to understand a little bit more, not to justify, but to understand people in France, in Germany, in Austria, when you get different changes. I mean, we have this even between our Bosniak nations, people from this city coming to Sarajevo, okay, what's he's gonna doing in my hometown, and not somebody changing the culture. So I think we have to be very careful when we speak about halal and Islamic and how do we use it, because some perceive it very, very negatively. Maybe there is a global approach to brand Islam in a bad way, like you do not have any other than Islamic terrorism branded in mainstream media. You don't have any other religion connecting it to, because only someone is a member of, and questionably is he a member of a certain religion. To go back to your question, I think we need to, and we can and should be the center of halal research, and we are trying to be that. We started rather early, since 2006. Our Halal Quality Certification Agency next year is going to celebrate 20 years of its existence. We have a lot of trained auditors, which are aligned, the standards are aligned both with the EU and the OIC standards. We promote and try to promote Bosnia and Herzegovina at global fairs, our products as quality products, European products. Not all of them, but some of them are also halal. We are a halal-friendly country when it comes to tourism. I think Novi Pazar can benefit from this, promoting Visit Novi Pazar, halal-friendly destination. I think this could bring in a lot of people. The politics should build better infrastructure. It should be easier to drive from Sarajevo to Novi Pazar, which is around under 300 kilometers. It takes more than 5 hours. There's no need for that. We have a big potential in the halal tourism, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we are seeing benefits from it. I mean, if you go to Sarajevo, you will see people coming from China, Turkey, the UK, Norway, Sweden, wherever. We have a lot of natural resources. We have to use them, but in a responsive way. And if we are talking about using the correct wording, I mean, if we talk about the UN's SDGs, Sustainability Development Goals, if you go through every one of them, I cannot find one which is not Islamic. Not even one. But they are not called Islamic, and they are widely accepted. So, I mean, words are just words. The most important thing is that we understand each other what we want to do. And if we say, okay, we want to live in an ethical and moral society, as this panel is called, first we need to agree what is it, who defines it. Is it just us who are believers and religious peoples, or do we take into consideration people who are also non-religious, and what is the bottom line? And I think the multilateral multilateral arena in the world is a place where we can agree on many of these things. So with that, I would say that education is important. We need to learn more, and to learn more about each other, and then to be able to communicate with one another in a proper way, to be understood, basically, and not to impose anything on anybody. And I would just leave one very provocative question for Muslims, majority of us here Muslims in the room. How come Muslims travel to non-Muslim countries and see their better future there, when we're having Islamic economy, Islamic banks, Islamic markets, zakat, everything? Why is everyone seeing Western countries as their route for better success and growth?
Thank you for the question at the end. Probably your introduction is a part of the answer to that question, you know, because they're more Islamic.
Yeah.
And thank you for drawing a parallel with the SDGs, as they also align with the Islamic values. And this leads us to the next question also in that sense, that the principle of Islamic finance, such as prohibition of interest and promotion of social justice, are philosophically aligned with the goals of sustainable and ESG investing. So how can financial instruments like Green Sukuk leverage this alignment to finance sustainable projects within the EU?
Thank you for the question. First, to your point, Sarah and Dino, I stopped calling what I do in France Islamic finance or Islamic banking. Now I use participative banking, participation banks, and it's the same thing in Morocco. Morocco, they call it participation banking. So I think it's a good term, good starting point, and then we can think about other things. But I would be delighted to join the club, inshallah. Thank you. Back to your question. A green sukuk is an Islamic finance instrument, which is similar to a bond, but is structured in a Sharia-compliant manner. So it's close to this, and it prohibits, of course, interest. Specifically, a green sukuk is designed to raise funds for environmentally sustainable and climate-friendly projects, such as renewable energy, for example, and eco-friendly institutions. It represents an undivided interest, undivided ownership in tangible assets. People think about sukuks as bonds, but they are not. They are between bonds and bonds and equity or something like this. So it's between the two. It's tangible ownership of the thing, and what you get as an investor is a return that is derived from the profits generated by the underlying assets, which is invested in environmental friendly projects. So I think that these green sukuks, they can check all the boxes that we have in environmental friendly regulations, in SDGs, in the Green Deal, European Green Deal. I do not see how we could do something differently. So there is no difference between what we have in Islamic finance and what we try to do in green sukuks and what is in the SDGs. I think you said it just before. So I think it's something easy. So let's do it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would now open the floor for the question from the audience, as we heard many interesting ideas. Any questions for any of the panelists, or any comments on what was said? Okay.
thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, experiences, research data with us. It was very interesting. I will just give a few short messages and maybe a question to Sarah. I would like to participate in the network that you asked. We can exchange the contact data later on. Thank you, Professor Ansari, for explaining us zakat in its essence, how it's considered. Of course, Dino Selimović, my ex-colleague from the bank, really explained very well what is the perception and what is the gap between how some people, due to the fact that they don't know or maybe they don't have opportunity to learn about it, see things that have a prefix Islamic into it. Very interesting point about the initiative to create Islamic banking in France by Brother Karim. From the banking point of view, any bank, regardless is it conventional bank or is it Islamic bank, can make money only in two ways. It's a profit margin from the financing activities, or it's a fee or commission for services. Okay, whatever you do, there is no third way to make money as a bank. It's one or it's another. Profit margin is generally connected to the risk that you are accepting. Fee and commission, generally speaking, other than documentary business, which is a fee-generating business, like a letter of guarantees, which is supporting export, construction, and so on and so forth, is not connected to the risk. You know, it's a money, it's a fee that you make from a simple transaction. Now, I heard once that the primary obligation or a business of Islamic bank is to satisfy the needs of the clients. Okay, maybe just like any other business. This is what sociology teaches us. What are the needs of the people? Okay, so we divide them on the primary, secondary, and so on needs. When we speak about primary needs, at least in Balkans, we can narrow it down to three primary needs: food, freedom, and shelter. Okay, so most of the people, when you ask them in our country, Dino and Brother Admir and Haris and the director, they can confirm, when you ask them, how is your life? They will say, very well. I have a meal on my table, so the primary need is satisfied, food. I have a roof on top of my head, which means a shelter, right? I have a house. And the third need, I said, nobody is shooting at me, coming from the war experience, meaning the freedom. So, when we are satisfying, as Islamic bankers, primary needs of the people, most probably, majority of our business will go to housing financing. Okay? And I agree, I'm not sure who said it, maybe you, Sarah, said it. When you go to the client and you are speaking about diminishing musharaka and profit sharing and this and that, they don't understand. Because they're looking for their primary need to be satisfied. So we have to align our wording while explaining to the people that we are going to be able to satisfy their primary need of obtaining the shelter for them and their family in halal manner. Okay? Now, this is something that of course, products and contracts are the framework where we have to stay within, because it's the difference of riba and the profit margin. But in terms of, how to say, sales, in terms of educating not only the users, by the wider public, maybe we have to align our wording with something that is more understandable, but always keeping, of course, the focus that it's halal and that it's approved, and that it's excluding any kind of interest in riba and so on and so forth, to be more understandable, to be more popular in that manner, and maybe when we grow as a bank, when we take more market share and more clients and so on and so forth, we can go to more, let's say, sort of say, complicated things for the general public. Anyways, thank you very much for sharing your points. It was really a pleasure to hear it out.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your insights. Any comments on this? Okay, we have another question.
Thank you very much. It's a lot of things that you said is that it's dependent, our action depends on our motivation. So how to establish that motivation? And the people, you said, a lot of them is calling themselves Muslims, but don't act according to Sharia law, Muslim law. So how to increase that motivation to act as they should act if they call them Muslims? So that's the first thing, because you said there are 7 million Muslims in France, but only a couple of thousands use Islamic finance institution, because the others call themselves Muslim, but are not enough motivated to use the institution that are Islamic Sharia compliance or Islamic compliance in finance. So maybe we are looking on the other side all the time, that we are just speaking about the legal frameworks, about the policies, but not looking at the motivation of the people to act according to the Sharia law. Because in Novi Pazar, whenever you look in the city center, you will see the new buildings. Almost none of them is bought through the bank. They are bought by cash. But none of them almost is not paid at once. They pay on the monthly rates. You pay 20%, 10%, 30%, and while the building is finishing, you are acting. We were motivated, and we did find a way to go around the financial institution. So that's maybe the answer is, well, not the answer, but the question is how to motivate people to find a way. Yeah.
First, let us answer the question. The question was posed to Karim, but anybody else can also join in. And then we will have one last question, and then we will have to wrap up because we are late for lunch. Karim, thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Very, very, very important. You know, in face of adversity, in France, Muslims go to Jumu'ah, they educate their children in Deen, and more than in Morocco. When I go to Morocco, I see people, of course, that go to Jumu'ah and they practice their Deen, but in France, in face of adversity, you tend to push for more Deen, to push for more Niyyah in what you do. The problem is education, because people tend to send their children at maybe 5, 6 or 7 at the madrasa to learn about Deen. But in the madrasas, we don't talk about money. We talk about the Jumu'ah, we talk about Quran, we teach everything about Deen, all but financial matters. Okay, I think if with our imams they start to learn about Islamic finance, and then teach our children financial matters in madrasas, what we see here, we will go, we will resolve these issues. Because at 20, 25 it's too late. You have to teach people about these matters at 7, at 8, at 10. Thank you very much.
My understanding that being a religious person, or being a Muslim, or a devoted Christian, or a Jew, or an Orthodox is a very, very private and individual thing, and everyone sets its own parameters of what being a good Muslim, Christian, Jew is. I think that we need to walk the talk, meaning we cannot just base ourselves on the theory of something which is written, derived from, let's say, the holy books, and not act upon it, or just justify going around the rules because it's in our favor. And one thing I really like, when you, with these new technologies, hearing so many of religious leaders of all religions talking about religion, but especially about Quran, not often, I'm not an expert in that, but not often the God, Lord, Allah doesn't tell, "O Muslims." Often he refers to all people, to everyone. So, you know, us Muslims also need to understand that we are not that exclusive. We are a part of a humankind. If God wanted, he would have created us all in the same religion, and we would have all been whatever religion he would choose for us. Instead, he made us different and told us, go, communicate, meet each other, travel, and understand each other. And I think this panel, these kind of gatherings, and having you, of course, being present, I hope you feel welcome, is a way forward. And I will just end by one sentence that we speak about Sarajevo mostly, but it can be implemented for the entire region, Bosnia, Serbia. The bell of the church never disrupted the sound of Ezan, the Muslim prayer. It never interfered with one another. So let's keep it that in the times to come.
Okay. Regarding your query about the motivation towards Islamic finance or religion, this is a common phenomenon. This is not only, demotivation is not only among Muslims, it is among the believers of all religions. And most of the people who belongs to every religion, for example, Muslims, Jews, or Christians, what I have observed that everyone is far away from its own religion. And this is basically due to the capitalistic approach. Because every religion has guided its followers that how to, as brother mentioned earlier, that to pay zakah, you have to earn ethically, morally, halal income you should have. But in every religion, if you read about that, every religion, for example, Islam, Christianity and Judaism, they all encourage us to earn in halal ways. But in practical, we can see that not only Muslims, but all other people belongs to other religions, they're not doing that. Recently, we have published a book, the title is Legal and Regulatory Aspects of Abrahamic Finance. Now that is a comparative book of three religions, Islamic finance, Jewish finance and Christian finance. And we have tried to find out what are the similarities and what are the differences among all three religions. And surprisingly, we come to know that all the basic principles are same in three basic religions. And why we keep the name Abrahamic finance? Because the root of all three religions come from Ibrahim alayhi salam. So this book is very interesting, and in that book the authors have described that the basic roots of all financial aspects and financial principles are same in all three religions. But when we look upon the practical application of these rules, everyone is disobeying that. So this is not specifically with the Muslims only. Definitely we are not acting upon the teachings of our own religion, but at the same time the followers of other religions, for Christians and Jews, they are also disobeying the religions. So the basic principle, for example, interest is haram in Islam, interest is haram in Christianity and in Judaism as well. Wine is haram in Islam, wine is as equal haram in Christianity and Judaism as well. But who follows it, who doesn't follow, it's a personal choice of everyone. Okay, so just to motivate towards his own religion, for example, as a Muslim, definitely we have to create maximum awareness about religion, about the financial aspect. If we talk about Islamic finance, we have to create more and more awareness. This is the only way to motivate Muslims to come to Islamic finance. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will have one last question as promised, and then we will wrap up.
I'll try to put a short question. As Professor TOBIN mentioned, financial exclusion as an obstacle for small businesses or startups businesses, especially for migrant population. We also on the Balkans. I'm from Skopje, where we have a lot of Muslims, but unfortunately we don't have any halal financing. So it's a really big issue there. And maybe it's something connected with the post-communist period, and where religion is separated from the social life and the economy. Maybe that's the consequences, the awareness, lack of awareness, and so on. But my question is, maybe if it's very difficult because of the legal framework to open Islamic financial institutions like banks or micro financing, maybe is it a better way to start with some vakaf funds? Can a vakaf fund play a greater role in this supporting the businesses? As we know, we are part of this Ottoman Empire history, where vakaf played a great role in business, and nowadays it's just on the religious institutions, and everything with the religious is separated from Islamic. And yes, that's a great. I agree that a great problem we have, because when we speak about Islamic finance, every eyes are on the imams and the religious authorities who are not interested at all in these matters. So we don't have that kind of authority to put this discussion on the plate. So thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'll provide an answer in sort of two parts. So the first part relates to the previous question about sort of making Muslim actors more Muslim in economy. And I think if we were to look at sort of the history of political Islam, we find that the history of political Islam is much more developed, much more sort of commonly known and understood in many different societies, right? And we are, I think, still in very early stages about sort of modern, contemporary Islamic economy. And we're still doing this hard work, I think, in many ways of learning ourselves and thinking creatively. And the lessons, I think we can learn lessons from other fields like political Islam. How to take sort of institutions and frameworks for organizing society and make them or hew them towards ethical impulses that derive from a religious basis, right? I mean, this is ultimately the endeavor of Islamic economy. And I think it's possible. And I think it's just going to take more time. In part because, as I mentioned earlier, the diversity of Islam that exists. So there's not just going to be one single way, but there can be multiple ways, multiple modernities at play here as Islamic economy becomes sort of developed and moves from place to place, and people take it with them. So then what do you do in these kinds of situations, right? I mean, that's a sort of theoretical kind of idea, thank you. But practically speaking, then what do we do? I mean, I think some of it is branding. I think some of it is about talking about what is already in the books. What do our country's regulations say is possible? And are there ways that those things can be sort of rebranded or discussed or understood as Islamic? Like most regulatory agencies and central banks allow profit and loss sharing. And yet it is so underutilized globally as a possible avenue for entrepreneurship, for example. I think that also this role of education is super important, and not just about concepts of Islamic economy, but about capitalism. I mean, like, what do we tell our kids about what capitalism is and how it works and how it affects the environment? I've also been reflecting a bit during this panel on early messages and ideas, that I've encountered. And I remember, like 20 years ago, or so, maybe not quite that many, 15 years ago, I was at a conference in Boston about Islamic economy and Islamic thinking. It was very small, sort of very early in America, and I raised the concern about environmental. About the environment and the role that Islamic banking could play. And the response I received was concerns about the environment is a Western problem. This is a Western idea, and it has nothing to do with Islamic finance. And now here we are 15, 20 years later, and it's a major component of the discussions, right? So these ideas will develop and change. And the main, I guess, question or the answer to the question of, well, what do we do, is we just keep trying. We do this, we share experiences, we share knowledge, we share ideas, and keep trying to turn those into anchors that Muslim migrants and native Muslims and reverts can all look to, and people outside of Islam can look to and say, this is a better way to organize, this is a better way to live. And that's what we can teach our children. So that's, I mean, it's just going to take time. But I think that, like political Islam got there, or is getting there, or has been there, I don't know, depending on which school you go to, I think that Islamic economics will also have more development.
Thank you, of course.
Actually, I'm really getting benefit of these all sharings. Thank you so much. I would like to add one more thing about the possibilities of Islamic finance, especially in Europe. Actually, I know there are some financial schemes like funds, even venture capital funds can be established and possible. But the problem is how we can execute it. Because in the banking system, banks are so regulated and so, how to say, audited, and you have always spotlights on it as professional bankers. So I think we need some kind of Islamic Islamic finance professional outside of the bank to run, to execute that kind of innovative way of doing things. I mean that, for instance, like Sarah mentioned, I was going to ask the estimation of the size of finance required for microfinancing in Sweden to finance the refugees, for instance. It's so possible to establish a fund or Wakf fund and then, collect the money there. But somebody, fund manager, should be managing it properly, distributing it and getting it back. So we need to establish governance models also in Islamic way. If we can do that, that day we would be doing a lot of executions, and because in Europe, especially in Europe, there are financial free zones. There are, very good developed financial, regulations, and everything is in order. So actually, nothing unknown, but somehow we have to, discover the things, and a little bit courage maybe. We need some kind of brother here, Karim. We need some kind of courage to become the Islamic finance professional, besides the bank, to achieve that kind of thing. Sorry, I just did it wrong.
Thank you. Your comments have been great for concluding our panel, and I will just give an opportunity for each panelist to give just a few final remarks, just in a sentence, in your way, if you like, if you choose one innovation or initiative that is the most important for increasing the ethical economy globally, what would it be from your perspective?
Yes, the takeaway of this panel discussion for me is innovation. And innovation means that what we have discussed earlier, that we do not forced to be Islamic finance. We can convey our message with alternative ways as well. Just a small example, if you allow me. Once I was in Poland, Poznan University of Economics, and I was delivering my speech, and one professor stood up and he asked me that you are, discriminating religiosity. You are again and again using the word Islam or Islamic. And when I said, okay, if I use Islamic banking instead of Islamic banking, if I use interest-free banking, is it okay? He said, yes, it's okay. So it means that we can convey a message, we can promote Islamic finance if you want, but we can adopt new ways, new techniques, new terminologies, and new ways for the promotion of this noble cause. Thank you.
Thank you.
I remember when I was doing my thesis research in Jordan, I interviewed one of the founding members of the Jordan Islamic Bank about the early days, in the 80s, when they were just getting the bank going and getting it started, and they didn't really have a strong foundation of knowledge to develop. It was still the early days, and to develop. And the gentleman I was interviewing, he said, yeah, we used to just take contracts and we would print them out, and at the top of the paper, we would put in like inside of a green circle, we would put Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and then bam, it became Islamic. And I mean, that story has really stuck with me. I mean, does that make it kind of veneer on what is an otherwise conventional practice? Or is there some way in which we can understand the ethical formation of what is an Islamic contract, right? And this idea, like, what is the underwear company that was referenced earlier? Is that an Islamic underwear company? I mean, I think this question of, like, what is the defining feature of Islamic in the Islamic economy? These ethical questions are dynamic, and they are they change over time, and they change from place to place. But I think that at the end of the day, we need to come up with ways to help people support their communities, support their families, to fulfill the needs that they each have, and to ultimately, I think, create a better environment for all people in doing so. And I think that there is a power to do that. And I do think that the questions of ethics and morals are the way forward in the future.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Well, let me announce something that we will be officially announcing at the London Halal Forum, the first London Halal Forum in November. After years of trying to do it with BBI Bank, the Sarajevo Business Forum, Sarajevo Halal Fair and Forum, Sarajevo Halal Fair, European Halal Congress, we're working intensively on a strategy or to present an initiative for Bosnia and Herzegovina to officially become the European Halal Hub and the Center of Excellence for the global Halal ecosystem, meaning attracting investments, investing in logistics, investing in manufacturing, and just educating and creating world-class products, services, solutions. And I would end just with a brief, it's my high school's motto, which is a verse from the Quran, which is, I think, well accepted. Fastabiqul khairat, let's practice and strive to achieve the virtue of deeds. Natičimo se u dobru, and God bless you all, and congratulations for this event.
Which surah and ayah? You don't remember.
Back to what you said, Sarah, about profit and loss sharing, about musharaka, mudaraba, and what said our esteemed professor. I think that banks won't do it. Large institutions won't do it because there is a lot of risk that is involved. So, in the current state, banks won't do it. But we, I think, as Europeans, we have a small window of opportunity in some, like in venture capital. You can create a venture business angel club under 150 people, and regulation permits that. So you have no problem. We all join together and invest in small firms. It is allowed, for example, in France. So we have to think about this kind of initiatives to develop the Islamic finance sector like a synthetic bank, not a large institution that does everything, but small initiatives that provide services we need in Europe and not wait for banks to create these services. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you to all the panelists. You actually asked a lot of questions, and probably we opened much more questions for the future, so the conversation needs to continue. Thank you for the valuable insights, and I think this discussion will inspire us to rethink how morality and markets can move together to create a more just and sustainable future. Once again, thank you all and big applause for our panelists.
Professor, let's just have a group photo.
Yeah, one photo and
panelists.